Hey everyone, today I'm covering the topic on lean development. Lean is a very important skill that you would need to apply in developing complex features. So let's get rolling. Imagine you're developing a new product or feature. You have two options. Option one, spend several months in developing the feature and then release it, which is what most teams tend to do. Option two, develop a MVP, minimal viable product, or as the way Amazon refers to it, minimal lovable product, and then iterate. Get it in the hands of the customer, start with the core feature, iterate. Start with just one or two features, maybe embarrassing to get something out there, but really push yourself to make things happen. Option two is what is the lean way, which is idea, formulating the list of hypotheses based on the idea, right? Um, Creating a version of the product, getting the product out there, learning from it, and iterating continuously. The key is accelerating the feedback loop from idea to prototype to learning back from actual experiences. In fact, the way to think about lean is an approach for iterative development. You start with an hypothesis, you design and assume that, okay, this feature would be supported by this design, test it out, roll it out in a cheap way, just to get a sense in terms of how users are using it. If they truly use it, may not be completely feature rich, and learn from it and then iterate. This loop is the lean loop. And given the fast pace of how products, features, competition evolves, as leaders, being cognizant of this approach and really applying the principles from here is going to be extremely valuable. This is something that I have done tremendously across multiple projects. And this is, I would basically say, the absolute key. Folks who are not familiar with lean tend to not understand the fact that the biggest unknown is the ability to actually get feedback fast. It's not really about building the perfect product or the perfect set of all the features one can think of. So in terms of lean is not new. In fact, history goes all the way back. Just taking with the 19th century, Henry Ford applied similar concepts, and Toyota, the Sakachi Toyota, really applied similar approaches, referred to as pull-driven production scheduling, which was really sort of being able to quickly retool production lines and apply based on feedback, based on being able to really diversify based on the needs of what was being learned. So what does it mean to iterate, right? When you think about it, when you're starting with an idea, right, within each loop, you have the aspects of learn, act, improve, learn, act, improve, right? You start with the idea, sort of get the idea rolling out there, build a proof of concept. It could be something which proof of concept may not even be software. It could be various different techniques. It could be a paper prototype that you get some folks to, some of your customers to interview on. Based on that, you actually build a prototype, again, something that is enough to help you learn, understand, which then gives you an MVP, which then gives you the product. So in each iteration, what you're really learning is you are testing and learning your hypothesis about the problem and the solution space. So the problem space essentially is, okay, we are focusing on a specific target customer and they have unsolved needs, which will be addressed if we provide a specific value prop, right? And to support that value, the value of providing confidence, let's say confidence in filing your taxes, that's the value, right? With a feature set of a specific way to get your W-2s, do the analysis and give you the number with a specific form of a UX or a consumption model. So bunch of hypotheses about the problem. On the user side, it's really a combination of what's the right feature set combined with consumption model or UX design combined with messaging. So these are the things that we are iterating and being very, very clear that everything is an hypothesis. Everything is, in some sense, needs to be validated, which is where the whole concept of lean comes in. You do not think that all the answers are known. You just need to build it. It's the other way around. We have hypotheses. We actually don't know if this is a pain point, if this is the most important value prop that customers care about. Maybe it is a value prop. Maybe they're not willing to pay for it. So that's really what these iterations are. And just continuing the example of taxes, really sort of thinking about there's a difference between the problem space and the solution space, in the sense that as you're iterating on the hypothesis, maybe your hypothesis about the problem is correct, but maybe the way you're creating a solution may not be the right approach. So not really getting fixated by a single solution, keeping these as separate. And in fact, even when you think of the problems, with there's one step before that, which is what is the value prop? Saving time, saving money. These are the value props that maps to specific problems. So when it comes to saving time, it's about, okay, saving time preparing taxes, saving time filing taxes. Now, in order to accomplish that, the solutions could be many. Like you give a stab at one, but that's the whole iteration cycle. So that's the way to think about lean product development. And the best case here is you are able to zero down your hypothesis through these quick iterations, right? Needs, oftentimes, yes, we have discovered the need, but guess what? There's competition already. So what is that subset which is not being handled by the competition? Right. Now, within a competition, yes, there is a subset, but then the technology is not there. So what is a subset which can be done through technology today, right? And iteration in terms of, okay, how much time do we have? How much cost we can spend? How much, what is a team capable of doing, right? If your solution requires, let's say, really deep, machine learning, but you don't have anybody on your team who can actually invent a machine learning algorithm. So you limit yourself to what's out there and how do you use these algorithms, right? Eventually leading to something where you can expect to get an ROI. So these iterations, rather than taking your first hypothesis and spending all the time in building out the actual MVP and the product, so to speak, and then learning, imagine the learning cycle to be, 6 or 9 months to truly sort of get that, versus an iterative approach, which is rapid fast, so that you can iterate 6 times within 6 months to really zero down as to what's the problem, what's the solution, what's the right UX, what's the messaging, and the feasibility of building it up. So that's the key part. When we think of MVP, I want to really clarify something that often gets confused. MVP doesn't mean a cheap, half-broken thing that hardly works, something which is fairly crappy and difficult to use. That's not MVP. Think of MVP really as, and Dan Olson has a great way to sort of represent this here, which is, and this is actually from the book Designing for Emotion, which is, when you think of the product, it's functional, reliable, usable, delightful. MVP is all of the above. It's a thin sliver of it. It may not be as feature rich. Pictorially to represent it on the right, as you see, MVP doesn't mean that you're just building parts of the car. It's functionally a fully functional, reliable, usable, delightful product in each stage, just that it's not completely feature rich. So the key takeaway here, in fact, there's a great book by Eric Ries called The Lean Startup. And in this, it talks about the 3 parts. How do you go from idea to code to data, or build, measure, learn? And within each of these, there are good playbooks defined. So for instance, when it comes to building fast, the aspects of unit tests, usability tests, continuous integration, open source software, cloud computing, these are all aspects, developer sandbox, huge makes a huge difference. So that's how you can go faster in terms of building, measuring some techniques in terms of funnel analysis, cohort analysis, net promoter score, real-time alerting, so on and so forth. And the last part is, how do you learn? How do you then analyze what's going on? So things like, custom advisory board, falsified hypothesis, customer archetypes, smoke tests, split tests, and so on. So uh, a lot of playbooks in this mix. My goal in the session was to at least introduce to you the concept of what lean startup or lean is all about. And this is heavily used in multiple startups. Assignment, next time while you're developing a feature, like, list the hypothesis that need to be tested and front load in the sprint iterations. This is the front loading of risks, right? How do you think of everything as an hypothesis, not take anything as a fact, and then work backwards in terms of, okay, what hypotheses are the most unknown, which if proven wrong will completely derail the usefulness of this feature. And really front loading them through this exercise will give you what I refer to as successful project or successful feature execution. Oftentimes, if you reverse it, you may get a lot of momentum early on, but you're really waiting on, reverse loading your risks, which can totally derail the project. Hope this was useful. See you everyone in the next episode.